You probably would have seen this blue mock-up engine on our videos before, but this isn't the same one. That's the old mock-up engine, because this, well, it's not really a mock-up engine anymore. This is a fully running 180T on a stand. Literally, that's the fuel tank, and it's got a high pressure fuel pump in it. And yeah, this is all our 180T Mark III MR2 conversion parts. The mounts, the 3-inch turbo back exhaust, the charge cooler with the custom boost pipes. All the mounts, that's actually, you know, the Toyota mount, Volkswagen mount, Toyota mount. You know, it's the full lot, including the wiring loom. And it runs and starts and boosts and yeah, everything. The only thing it hasn't got yet, and it's going to have shortly, is the cooling system. And then this can be ran indefinitely. We have got the MR2 ECU, 180T ECU. This emulates everything. So we've got, this is OBD, throttle pedal. We can basically run any loom that we make for a customer on here and check the fault codes, check the sensors. We can make sure everything's working before sending it, because it's, you know, it's one thing a customer going, oh, my loom and something doesn't work, but it's like, have they done something wrong, or was there a mistake? But with this, we know there's no mistakes, you know, because it's a pain in the ass if you've sent them something from, you know, right across the world, and they say they've got an issue. With this, no issue. I mean, literally OBD, and everything that the customer might need to wire it themselves, we have labelled. So we got our cool little label right here, because there's a few things. It depends what the customer's offered, you know, supplied. If they've supplied us with the sort of wiring loom as well, there's very little for them to connect. But if they've not supplied that, there's a few more things to connect, not much, and everything is labelled exactly where and what. Thomas will do a video on exactly what these things are fairly soon, but I just thought I'd show you the whole engine. And look, you got these. I'm not sure which goes where. So that is power on. You can hear the throttle body. I think this one will be fuel pump, and then this will start it up. And you've literally got a running 180T. So literally, but this allows us to plug everything in, unplug everything, check everything on the gauge, and, you know, rev it up and see what you think. Better not leave it running for long, because there's no cooling system at the moment, so yeah, it'll get a bit hot. But yeah, fully running, fully testable 180T with all our parts and loom, so we can test everything. It's also to show people how the coolant system is connected as well, because that's really simple. Thomas has done a separate video for that. I'm not going to do a video for that as well, but it's all connected on here. Very, very simple. My VR5's got an inlet manifold, although it's nowhere near fitting. It physically is on the flange, but it's for a VR6, as you can see. Basically, we bought this one from Germany. I think it might have been that TR Technics or whatever, TA Technics, whatever they're called. And it seemed, I mean, it's a bit crap when you look at it. It's a log manifold. It's not my kind of inlet, and it's certainly not Thomas's kind of inlet. But it would suffice for my goals on here, to be honest. But we didn't buy it for that. We bought it thinking, well, it's fairly cheap, and it can be modified into a good one. You could make a nice twin plenum one out of this or whatever. It's an option. Unfortunately, after shipping and after fucking taxes and stuff, it was quite expensive, especially for what it is, because it is a bit shit. Surprisingly, the aluminium is pretty good quality, so Thomas did a test weld on it, and well, it's nice. So it's not bad for modifying, but it's a lot of money for something that needs so much modification. It hasn't even got the holes for the throttle body drilled, even though it's the right sort of size for the VR5 or VR6 throttle body, which is 67mm, so it's more than big enough for even really big power. But it hasn't even been tapped for that. Not like that's a big deal, but still. But to be honest, for my goals on this, which is only going to be, you know, 350 odd and nice noises, I'm not too fussed. I think I'll be alright with this inlet, in all honesty. Feels like a lot of work to make a fancy inlet for my goals on this. I know what Thomas is like. He might want to, just because he's so offended by rubbish inlet manifolds. But I don't know. We'll see when the time comes. In other news, my own car, my 180T, is really, really close to being done. Boost pipes are done. All the clamps are on, barring a couple which haven't turned up yet and I haven't got the right size. Fuel system is now done. Completely redone. Got my fancy billet fuel rail, which is a right pain in the ass. Radium regulator there now, completely different lines. Most of the fanciness is inside the car. Got a turbo blanket on it again now. I actually looked into if I could wrap the manifold, but realistically the style of the manifold, it's not easy to wrap and there's no real point either. All the oil breather system is complete. And yeah, it's very, very close to it. I finished the fuel system plumbing. The last bit's turned up today. Then I thought, you know what, let's have a look at the wiring. And I rapidly realised I had no fucking clue what I'd done. I managed to identify a couple of the wires, but I don't know what half of them did. But then looking at the loom near the ECU, it was a fucking mess. It was a nightmare. And Thomas did say, oh, do you want me to make you one of these nice looms? Now I'm doing them for customers. Because mine was obviously a development mule, you know, a development loom, because this whole car was a development mule. So it was literally the most barely modified loom there was, just to make it work. It wasn't tidied up. And yeah, it's an absolute fucking shit show. So very wisely, even though it's a nightmare to even remove because it's such a jumbled mess of shit, I took it all out. Well, it's Sunday at the workshop. I'm the only one here, and I'm here not to get this on the road because the wiring loom is still not finished. In fact, I've gone to town on it and completely fucking removed all the stuff I did previously because I don't like it, and it's all getting better. I'm making all of this better. Thomas is making the wiring loom better, and yeah, it'll be better, but it also delays this car being ready. It's all plumbed in, just not this. But another thing I'm doing is making this plug, or at least attempting to, into a rotary engine top dead center tester. And I don't know how. I've got an idea. I'm going to cut this up and see if I can do an experiment. So this is a rotary plug off a, I don't bloody know, this, I don't know if it's an RX7 or RX8 one, I can't remember. Being it's a temperature 8, it's pretty mild, so it's probably an RX8 one. Just one I'd lying around. Rotaries are very, very hard to get true top dead center on, like exact. So most trigger wheels aren't correct, basically, so you can't trust the trigger wheel. And this testing is the only really good way of doing it. And basically what you're doing is adapting one of these to become just a fitting with an airline and feeding it into a little tub of water and using the air bubbles, or lack of, as in when the air bubbles stop, to know you've hit top dead center when you're rotating the engine by hand. I reckon I can make one out of this. I'm gonna mess about with it and try and find out. So I should have filmed that because it looked pretty good, but I just put the plug in the old chopper and it exploded it, so that's perfect. But yeah, I mean, it's solid in there and there's no really pulling out that electrode. So I honestly think the next thing would be clamp this in there and just run a drill bit for all the way through it and fucking hope for the best. It doesn't like it. I wonder if it's going to wreck this one as well. Okay, so I've learnt today that spark plug ceramic is fucking well impervious to drilling and cutting. I reckon I can just smash it out with pointy things and a hammer. So let's try that. Okay, pointy things don't work very well either. Fuck's sake. I thought this would be an easy job. Okay, as ever, YouTube to the rescue. How to take apart a spark plug. And he's basically doing exactly what I'm on about. And I know how now. I just tried beating this out, don't come out. All you need to do is this bit here is literally a press bit. They must squeeze it in, you know, squeeze it onto the porcelain with a machine when they make them. I bet if you watch how it's made spark plugs, you'd probably realise that as well. And he just got the lathe and removed this bit, and then the porcelain basically almost falls out. He had to hammer it a bit from that side, but not much. So I'm going to whack it in the lathe now and see if that works. Hope it does. Right, hopefully that should smash out now, if the man on YouTube was right. Fucking hell, he was right. Shazam. I could have done that in about a quarter of the time if I knew how to do that in the first place. I think the answer, the moral of that story, is, if you're not sure, before you just guess, watch YouTube. I'll tell you. I could do this again neater, but to be honest, this is fine. This is the only bit I need. I'm going to have to weld some kind of fitting on there to make it work. I'm going to tidy this up slightly and just weld some kind of fitting that I could put a hose on it. Well, because lathes are fun and this is the first bit I found, I'm going to machine this presumably brass fitting. I don't even know if it's brass. It feels too heavy. I wonder if this is just like steel that's been anodized. Gold? I'm not sure. Either way, I'm going to pull it on the lathe, get rid of some of the threads and probably a little bit of the meat. It's got a ton of meat, so it's fine until it slots into there. This isn't going to be under any pressure at all. Not even like 1 psi. So a hard push fit and maybe a little bit of sealant would be all it needs. Oh, that's good. How much we need need to take off to fit in there, I don't know. Oh my god, that should be, yeah, a bit of glue I think, and that should work. Fucking hell, I thought I'd have to take more off than that. Well, it's now many hours later and I've achieved two things today. That is that custom top dead center finder for a rotary engine made of an old RX7 spark plug, lots of cutting and lathing, and some fitting that I lathed down to fit, and then some JB weld in between. So yeah, that should work nicely for that. And I've done most the wiring in here now. Basically, it still needs tidying, but it all works, it seems. So basically, I will show you. I have, well, the first thing, I didn't want to have the pumps come on with the ignition key like it is on a standard car, because simple fact is that would run the batteries down, and when I'm well, it would run the batteries down if I left the ignition on. And the thing is, sometimes I need the ignition on to do programming on the ECU and so on. So the ideal thing is to be able to have the ignition on while nothing else is on, and that's what I've done here. Basically, I was thinking at first, it's like, should I run relays? And I was like, why? I mean, a relay is just a switch. So as long as you've got powerful enough switches to handle the current, then a relay is basically serving absolutely no purpose apart from to make things more complicated and maybe to be a bit flashy. It's like, no bollocks. I asked Thomas as well, and he basically said exactly what I was thinking. So it's like, okay, I'm not talking shit then. So, master power switch. Yeah, sensors are not hooked up on the gauges yet, so don't worry about that. But the gauges power up, my USB charger powers up. This is my horn, which is loud as fuck. That's the in-tank pump. That's one swirl pot pump. That's the other swirl pot pump. Those two are noisy at the moment because the swirl pot's empty. That's why I'm only leaving it on for a second. But yeah, that is good. It works. There's my fuse box, and yeah, when a fuse blows, the light lights up, so I know what's going on. And now I've done the wiring like this, I know what wires are what, so I'm not confused anymore. So yeah, a few more things to do. The main engine loom, and then I need to wire in these switches, which would be like map switch and things. I don't need them right now, but you know, so something for the future. And yeah, it's back on the road. The reason I was making that stupid adapter out of a spark plug earlier in this video is for this Mark's RX7. And what we're trying to do, I emphasize the word trying because it's a fucking cunt, is basically find top dead center, because it's notoriously difficult to accurately get top dead center on these engines, and you want to have top dead center to be as accurate as possible in the ECU, because if not, the ignition timing's out everywhere, and that's not good for any engine. But on a rotary where they explode at the merest hint of detonation, that's really, really not good. So we're trying to be as accurate as possible, because it's got a trigger wheel, look, but these are known to not necessarily be that accurate. So my little adapter is, so we've got a little hose and it's in a spark plug, and then we turn the crank and watch the bubbles, and when the bubbles stop, that should be top dead center. So yes, it's an absolute ball ache. We was doing it with the cup down there, and I filmed it, and I might be able to put the footage of it, so we got it side by side in slow motion. but it's still a bastard. But I will show you exactly what it is. So yeah, crank pulley, breaker bar, this onto the spark plug, and literally I will put this in here and I will turn this slowly. Bubbles, 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 fucking bubbles. And then if you go slow, and then when it stops, that should be top dead center. And according to this, like all the other bit of testing we've been doing for the last couple of bloody hours, doing this over and over again, that's about 2.5 degrees. And then just to be on the safe side, I go a little bit more and watch where it starts to suck back in, and it's there, which is about 0 on the gauge, 1 degree to 0. So yeah, the trigger wheel isn't that accurate. This fucking, you can argue all day how accurate this is, but you just need to get things as close as you can so shit don't explode. And that is why I've done that, and that is also why you should always ignore things that are meant to be accurate, because unless you can be sure they're accurate, that's why I say proof is everything, because that's some fancy aftermarket trigger wheel thing, and people said theirs was inaccurate, because they are, but other people said they was inaccurate by about 7 degrees. This ain't 7 degrees, this is a couple, but still. In other news though, how fucking cool does this look? This is going to be mental when it finally works. When that is, who knows? Who fucking knows?